good day. So today I'd like to talk to you about the importance of nutrition and its implications, not as a nutritionist, but from the level of an overview of what's happened in society over the last, more or less the last century, as a result of lack of nutrients and good diet. So the other week I spoke about how babies in the womb are being affected by the environment that they're placed in, but very much so by the food that the mother consumes, because everything the mother consumes is feeding the baby. Obviously that's common sense. But if there's any kind of missing vitamins or minerals in the system, it really does affect the baby. And if you look at society these days, how much crime there is, how much depravity there is, how fallen we are, and how different women are and how different men are. When you think about women have lost that, a lot of women have lost that feminine side of them and are becoming more androgynous, and there's this separation, the divide between the sexes, and men are becoming weaker because of the hormones that are in the water system that they're drinking, and fear and other things that add to the way they feel in themselves. It makes them feel emasculated in many ways when women are too androgynous in their behaviours, and basically have lowered the bar. Equality isn't about women getting as drunk as men do and sleeping around like the men have, and if they can do it, we can do it. That's not what equality is about. Equality is about mutual respect. Equality is about mutual respect when it comes to careers, to salaries, to positions in important places of authority, and so on and so forth. But there's certain things that men are just generally better at. I was talking to a friend of mine recently, and she was saying about women in the women firefighters. She said if she was in a burning building, she would want a big 6'5" strapping man to be able to come and carry her down the ladder, instead of worrying about a woman who couldn't pick her up. And it makes sense to me. So the societal roles have really changed. And if we go back to 100 years ago or more, before, post or pre-World War I, for example, sending your children to school was actually frowned upon in certain cultures. It was like you'd failed because you were shoving them out the door, when you're meant to be teaching your children. They need to be with you. That's what the mother's role was. Obviously the father can add to that if he's got skills as well, but mothers are meant to be at home with their children, certainly for the first 7 years anyway, while they're in that theta brainwave frequency, and they're absorbing everything, absolutely everything they see, sense, feel, hear is going straight in, becoming hardwired into their systems. Yet I'm guilty of it. I did it. I sent my son to school when he was 5 years old. We trust that they're giving them what they need, and it's not necessarily the right way. I recently met someone who's been homeschooled till the age of 7, and he's the most polite, tuned into women, had a good relationship with both his parents, particularly his mother, and balanced male I've actually met since I've been in Canada, to be honest. And he was homeschooled, so that first 7 years was spent being taught all kinds of brilliant things by his mum. He can cook, his dad he can hunt, he could survive in nature, because he was lucky enough to have parents that had those skills and taught him those skills. Why aren't these skills being promoted on television instead of advertising that's go and get another burger at 11 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, when people should be going to bed, and they've got this junk food advert on TV that gets them salivating and going towards the fridge because they're stressed out. So if we go back, school was frowned upon, college was frowned upon 100 years ago. or so, because it was just monkey training, the same thing for everyone. It was for the masses. Yet move forward 50 years and people, you know, with degrees now are looked up to as if they've got a halo. It's a, that's how it came to me. And in truth, 10 years down the line, they can only remember 5% of what they learned in all that time. So is it really that important? Are we just being programmed into being monkeys that are learning a curriculum that a certain few, and I'm going to be careful what I say on here, want to program us into that, and the elites, the ones that, you know, are the straight A's, are kind of nurtured into scholarships and other systems of manipulation in that respect to create a society of the little worker ants and the boss ants, which is what's going on. But if you look even deeper than that, a child that is not nourished in the womb when you know, when the mother's pregnant, the changes in the size of the children, it's even affecting them. An average child used to be 6 to 8 pounds born. Now an average child is 6 to 11 pounds. Babies are being born obese. When we were created, going way back, when women, the feminine women stayed at home, the men were the hunter-gatherers, the pregnancies didn't need to go on till 9 months, or, you know, even longer in some cases. They were 6 to 7 months. The child would be 3 to 6 pound and perfectly healthy. They were born into the mother's hands. I talked about this the other night. And they were nurtured by the mother, breastfed by the mother, a mother that had had all the nutrients that she needed because they grew their own food. There was no preservatives, no pesticides, no additives, none of this stuff. It was all, you know, cooked, taken out the garden, cooked and eaten fresh, when it's supposed to be eaten within 90 minutes of actually being cooked. So back in the day, we were more intelligent. I'm sure most of you would agree with me. And statistically, it's been proven that humanity are actually getting dumber and dumber. And it's down to nutritional deficiency in the mother and the father, because it takes two to create, you know, the baby, and whatever is going into the man's body is, you know, is coming through in the sperm as well. So it's both parents need to be educated into the importance of diet and the importance of having a child per se, not just having a child because it's the thing to do, or you know, and just packing them off to school when they're 4 years old, and then the mum's got to go to work because the mortgage is so big and she's stressed and the family's just breaking down because it's not the way it was meant to be. Women that stay at home have been mocked, and career women get off balance because they can't, you know, manage. Well, they may do it for a while, manage a career and a husband and their needs and their children's needs, but eventually that's going to prove a problem later in life. At some point there is a breakdown in the system because that's not how we were created to function. So we've got the lack of nutrition into the parents, which is, you know, fertilize the egg, and then the baby is growing, it's absorbing everything it's exposed to in the womb. And I've spoken before about the ultra scans, when people are saying, oh look, he's kicking it, you know, he's going to be a footballer. That's the baby being shocked by the ultrasound. It's nothing to do with the baby, you know, kicking a football around, or the analogy of that. It's messing with nature. And if you think about it, and I said this in the other video, 20,000 deaths in every million born in hospital. What's going on there? What is going on there? You need to watch my other video about that, about women being placed on their back to give birth. Well, obviously we should be squatting as gravity helps, and if we've had all the dietary stuff is correct in our system, all the nutrients, the body produces endorphins to stop the pain, and we don't need the drugs. We come into the world, if we've had epidurals or gas and air, or whatever we're given to help with the pain, the child is getting all of that. So in the womb, we're being exposed to lack of nutrition. If you're watching violent movies or anything like that, if you're watching pornography or anything like that, the negative frequencies that are coming out of the screen are going into your unborn child. In the delivery room, instead of being at home where we're meant to be born with our mother and maybe a family member, one of the, back in the day, the women gave, helped one another give birth, into the mother's hands and into the mother's arms as quickly as possible. Instead, they're in a clinical room with people coming in and out, somebody screaming in the room next door. You don't know how many people have been in and out of that room in a day. Nobody's clearing the energies in these hospitals. I've got friends that are nurses and clairvoyants and have been in hospitals talking. There's spirits of people that are passed over or wandering around. Energetically, hospitals are terrible places for a newborn baby to come into. They're not a good space to be in. I'm not saying don't have a child in hospital, that's purely your choice, but consider the options. So we've got lack of nutrition in the womb. When we are leaving our mother's body, we're drugged up. So, it's coming slower, it's happening slower in the birth canal than it should be. We're being deprived of oxygen as a result of that, which is affecting the hippocampus and brain development. And then by the time we get into the world, we're brought into a cold room. Somebody picks us up by the ankles and slaps us on the backside to bring us round because we're drugged up. People need to be being aware of this. Something needs to be done about this. More women need to be standing up and sharing this information with others, and have let's get the home birth thing going again, because it's just not right. And the problem is all of this trauma. My area of expertise, as you know, some of you, is trauma repair. Psychological, emotional, mental, spiritual trauma repair. That's my area. Consciousness. So everything that baby has experienced, both in the womb and during the scary birthing process, where it's drugged up and it doesn't know what it's doing, and it comes out and gets smacked by a stranger and often whisked off into another room, doesn't even get to feel his mom or her mom. All of that is stored in the baby's system, and this is now being exposed in a documentary on Prime called Attention Please, as a huge link, connection, and probably the cause, this doctor thinks it's the cause, of things like autistic spectrum disorders, ADD, ADHD, dyspraxia, dyslexia, anxiety, and developmental delay syndrome, and this kind of thing. So all of the people that have been fighting that autism is this and autism is that, I've never heard before people talking about birth trauma being related to autistic spectrum disorders. And the reason I'm going to keep talking about this is because the way I work with the healing portal is able to go in beneath the level of the physical, beneath the level of the mental and emotional and spiritual bodies, into the etheric level, or the morphic resonances, the morphic field that is storing memories, because they fractal on an energetic level like strings of energy. All of that is in the system. So I'm pretty sure that the one portal could be used on a massive scale to be able to help people that fall into that category and clearing birth trauma, because it affects the central nervous system, and that's stopping people developing. It should leave the system between 6 and 12 months old. So this has been a massive find in respect of we may have the root cause of a global problem that is it's getting bigger constantly. More and more and more children are being diagnosed and given meds to heal something that may be able to be healed with the one portal and taking out the morphic resonances of the memories of the birth trauma and resetting the central nervous system. And those of you that have worked with me before or done any of my online programs or audios or my Patreon channel, you know that we reset the system, the templates of the consciousness of the system every time we do anything, even when we after a meditation. So I'm sure this can be changed. So if we look at society as a whole and how fallen is the kindest word I can say that society is, and how women are becoming more androgynous, and there's a difference between being balanced in your male and female energy, that's balanced, and that's, there's both aspects of the divine feminine and divine masculine is a great place to be. There are some people that are more feminine than others and some women that are more masculine than others. But the trouble with the masculine side is they tend to be drawn to poor diet, looking for spicy foods, peppers, chilies, that kind of stuff, because that works with keeping the fire energy in the body. That's more linked into the testosterone that's pumping their male side. And there's no judgment here, because I've been off balance in my male side for many years, because that part of me was trying to protect the female side of me that had been, experienced a lot of trauma. And so, I do know what I'm talking about with this, because I've been there and I brought that back into balance. And anyone who's, been with me for the last 4 years, I've been on social media, you've watched me, and I've shared my journey with bringing that balance back into my own system, and I work on it all the time. I tend to, stay pretty balanced these days. Doesn't mean that I don't have the odd off day, though. It does happen sometimes. So when we look at society, what's going on now, we've got people having children out of wedlock. I've spoken before about the first person, and this apparently is true for men and women. I remember speaking about women. I was trying to get the women to wake up a bit. We don't need to be like men. That's not what we are. We need to be balanced in ourselves, but we don't need to behave like men to get equality. That's not what it's about. But the first people we have sexual intercourse with leaves an energetic imprint in our systems that affects our children when we do have children. It doesn't matter if you've been intimate with 10 people and have a child with the 11th person. All 10 of those people you've slept with are going to be affecting the energy that goes into the child in the 11th person. And that goes for men or women. And this needs to be taught to girls. Girls need to be, and boys need to be taught how important this is. Boys need to be taught by the men about the importance of semen retention as well. Because what people don't understand, young people don't understand, is that there's an agenda to guide them into being, sexual depravity and promiscuity, because it keeps people in their base chakra. That's the fear, fight or flight area of the body on a physical level. And that fear, that fight or flight stimulates the base chakra and increases, sexual promiscuity as a result. But they don't understand the implications of sleeping with people without love, that you're opening yourself up to, these negative frequencies and energies that come in like viruses into your computer that affect your whole nervous system. They affect your mental, emotional body. They affect your brain. Your whole processing unit is affected by the people that you're intimate with. And I've said many times, the 5 people you spend most of your time with are what your average frequency is. So have a think about that. Who do you spend your day with? Who do you spend your evening with? And you know, that one of those people may be your higher self. It may be your dog, and you know, they're probably two of the top of the list that I would go for. But when I've learned this, and over the years, I used to be a very, very sociable person who pulled back immensely for many reasons. But I'm really still very fussy about who I spend my time with, because vibrational frequencies make a difference to who you're talking to, what they're saying to you, opening up portals, opening up that connection, the bonds. I said 3-second rule. When they're talking about something, you're mentioning it, talking about it, you start connecting with it and pulling that energy into your energy field. And we're here now to be raising the bar. We're here to be raising ourselves up, to be taking out all of this deprivation of our ancestral lineages, and maybe what we've done in our lifetimes because we thought it was the cool thing to do, or we got involved with stuff that we regret doing. Doesn't matter. It's all a learning curve. But we as a society have fallen so far from just common decency that there is, at some point, is got to explode or implode. Something has got to happen, because if we can't continue with it this way. And it's on the parents. It's on the parents, plate to deal with it. When I was younger, when I had my son, we couldn't even get him into the school we wanted to get him into unless we did, I think it was a 12-week or something like that, I can't remember exactly, parenting course, good parenting course. And it was brilliant. It was absolutely, brilliant. Natural earth mothers are great at it. It's easy for some women to be, natural good mothers. They were taught to cook and so on and so forth. But then there's a whole area of society out there that goes unnoticed, and things like autistic spectrum disorders, that, the milder ones are not picked up. There's I think one girl to 4 boys on average. And the girls tend to slip through the net because they tend to just be a bit more quiet, and people just think they're shy or something like that. So you've got all of these people out there, the younger people and a couple of generations beneath me, that have gone through this birth trauma. They've got these developmental delay, autistic label. Some of them may even be on medication. That some simple healing of releasing the morphic field and the morphic resonances of the birth trauma and resetting the central nervous system could be making a huge difference to their whole emotional, psychological, mental maturity. And then there needs to be more education out there. So the women out there that have got these skills, and it's natural to you, if you've thought about writing books about it, or having a YouTube channel or something like that, that's sharing those skill sets with other girls, that this is desperately needed in society. Desperately needed, because the skills were passed down. They used to be passed down. People learned by talking. And the other thing I've learned is, and this made so much sense to me, when I was 25, I had very slight short-sightedness, myopic vision, and actually my glasses have not changed since I was 25 years old. And what I found out, that studious, particularly women, secretaries back in the day, when the secretaries was the women going into the workplace because the men weren't getting paid enough. Apparently they're better typists than us, they can do it faster, but they're in that, they've got their male brain going on. The women started becoming secretaries and doing that job. And that's when women were being, women going out to work, and this is a great thing, equality for women. There was an agenda behind that to get lots of taxpayers going and keep them on a low wage, but we'll still take the taxes off them. There was an agenda there. That's not about empowering women at all. It did in some cases, but not all of them. So what I discovered is that women that have studied a lot and done a lot of reading and writing, they're losing, and I guess the boys are as well, vitamin A from the system. And this affects the eyesight. And that made so much sense to me, because obviously when I was younger, I went studied building studies for the architecture and all the other stuff that I was doing. And my eyesight started to deteriorate slightly when I was around about 25. My optician said that I should tell my boss I need to stare out the window at something in the distance every 20 minutes. And I thought, that reminds me of school. It always said, Janine's a lovely girl and very helpful, a very bright girl, but she could do better because she lacks concentration and likes to stare out the window at the clouds. And I was like, yeah. Probably because I was so bored with the monotonous curriculum. I excelled in, physics and art and that kind of stuff. That mathematics as well was my thing. So useful stuff, I guess. But so this is another thing. So then I started finding out about certain cultures back in the day didn't train women to read and write for that reason, because up until the age of 21, we're actually still developing, we're still physically maturing. So if you're in that, from the age of, let's say, 5 to 21, or 4 to 21, you're in that 16, 17 years of focusing with your eyes, studying, reading, writing, whatever. Maybe not so much in the first few years, but all of that puts such a strain on the system that we're losing vitamin A. And then we've got all these children wearing glasses at an earlier age as well, because of the lack of vitamin A and too much academia, that in 10 years time 95% of it is going to be forgotten. So the whole system needs to be changed. The system, I don't think children should be going to school until they're 7 years old in any shape or form, unless it's a community one where it's run by the mums, maybe the dads that have got skills they want to teach the youngsters. But it should be about creation. It should be about developing the creative mind and the intuitive mind and emotional connection with other people, and how to play and how to be kind and how to be compassionate. Not sit still, do this, do that, and regiment it. I don't think it's a good thing in that respect. Once we get to 7 and we start changing, then we're in a different a different level. But I've spoken to you before about these schools where the children 12 to 16 built their own school. They put the curriculum on. There's teachers that come in, but they sit with the class. There's no hierarchy and so on, and they educate one another. There are 12-year-old geniuses out there that have got a lot to say, but they're stunted because they're put into the school system and they're not allowed to express themselves. And by the time they're 14, 15, 16, we've got these children that are full of anxiety, full of pent-up anger and frustration because they can't express themselves, depression, getting put on antidepressants and drugs, and the suicide rate is ridiculous. And all of this that I'm talking about could be linked in to the birth trauma, developmental delay. So if there's any healers or therapists out there, this is something that really needs to be taken into consideration on a global scale. This needs to go out. Please do share this with people. There's nothing in here that is going to be too hard for anyone to understand, but it needs to be brought to the public awareness. And I'm sure that the One Portal can help with it. So thank you for listening. I hope you found this interesting. The next One Portal healing and meditation, 20-minute no mind meditation, is on the 4th of April at 12 p.m. Pacific. That's 3 p.m. Eastern. It will be saved if you can't make it because of work commitments and so on. So hopefully I'll see you there. And thanks for joining me this evening, guys. Please do share this. And if you've got any questions, you can leave a question in the comments below. What do you think about what I've said about society and how the way, you know, the depravity is there? I remember when I was at school, there was probably 1 or 2 girls in a class of 31 that weren't, you know, that were sexually active when I was 16. Now you'd be lucky to find 1 or 2 that are not sexually active, and it's not a good thing. It really isn't a good thing. And it's all about education, and it starts at home. It starts at home. Okay guys, thanks for joining me. Hope you found that useful. Please subscribe, like, share. It all helps with the ratings on here, and as you know, I'm fairly new to YouTube at the moment, so I'm still building up a few people. Hopefully will this resonates with. I don't like to use the word followers. Resonators. So thanks for joining me. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and I'll see you again soon. Bye for now.